The U.S. has had over 2,000 school shootings since the 70s, and the numbers are increasing. 948 school shootings have occurred since the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012. I recently spoke with Dr. Langman, a psychologist who studies the psychology behind mass shootings.
The question of what mental illness is, though it seems like a simple question, is really very complicated. And I think that's part of the issue when people talk about violence or school shootings in terms of mental illness, because most people don't stop to define what they mean by mental illness. So when people are talking about, is mental illness responsible for violent attacks, it's a very problematic conversation if we don't stop and talk about what we mean when we say mental illness. So if people are referring to, for example, psychotic disorders like schizophrenia, in which people may be out of touch with reality, may have delusions, may have hallucinations, that's a very narrow range of the possible mental health diagnoses someone could receive. School shootings occur for different reasons. And what we need to emphasize is there's no profile of a school shooter. There's no one thing they all have in common. It's a very diverse group of people. And I often say different types of people commit different types of attacks for different reasons. So some people commit very targeted attacks against specific individuals they have a grievance against. So when we're talking about why someone might commit a school shooting, it could be revenge for a real or perceived injustice they feel they've suffered. It could be they're so desperate and insecure and they envy other kids, they may attack the kids who are succeeding where they are failing, the kids whose lives represent everything they don't have themselves. They want to feel like they're somebody, and they know that if they kill a lot of people, they're going to become famous. So we see fame seeking in a lot of the perpetrators.
Do you think mental health plays a role in mass shootings?
Well, when we talk about mental health or mental illness as it might intersect with school shootings or other mass shootings, I don't like to use the term mental illness because that is so vague and we don't know what people mean by that typically. I tend to think in terms of psychological issues. So, being angry may not be seen as a mental health issue, but if someone's angry enough to kill because they got turned down for a date, or they got a bad grade on a paper, or they got reported for misconduct and got suspended, to me, psychologically, there's something wrong with that. That even if we don't call it mental illness, psychologically, happy, well-adjusted people don't go committing mass murder. Perhaps surprisingly, the warning signs of an impending attack are often very obvious. The trouble is people don't take them seriously. So there have been school shooters who have announced they're going to bring a gun to school and kill people. One kid said, when I come back with a gun, you're going to be the one I shoot. They're not always that obvious. Sometimes students hand in homework assignments that don't announce anything in terms of an attack, but the content is very disturbing. And if you started asking a few questions, maybe you'd find all the information you needed to take action. So it could be explicit warning signs. It could be less obvious warning signs, either to peers or things that show up in homework assignments or on social media. People dismiss warning signs for a variety of reasons. If you've got 11, 12, 13-year-old kids and they're talking about committing mass murder, people probably aren't going to take that seriously. But we need to understand, no matter how young they are, they can still pull the trigger. Or what if it's your best friend and you've known him all your life, and he's always been a good kid and he's never hurt anybody, and suddenly he makes a homicidal threat? It's very hard to think that someone we know and really like could be a mass murderer. That's a big thing to try to get through our heads and really take in. So, there's a lot of things that may get in the way of people responding to a warning sign. So we really need to be on guard against trying to rationalize a behavior and talk ourselves out of taking action.
In my question, you talked previously about how the warning signs are pretty blatant and that we're just not paying attention to those students. So why do you think people aren't paying attention to those students? Why do we ignore them in a sense?
In some cases, there's still a mindset that this kind of attack is something that happens other places. It can't happen here, not in our town, not in this school. We're a little close-knit community. That's the kind of thing that happens somewhere else. And what people don't understand is those little communities, those safe suburbs and so on, is where these things tend to, Newtown, Connecticut, where Sandy Hook Elementary School is located, is a beautiful little town. Small town America, but a beautiful, affluent town with essentially no violent crime until it had one of the worst massacres in our history. If you've experienced an attack, it's very likely that it would be helpful to see a mental health professional. It's not something anyone should try to get through on their own. And you can always, of course, reach out to your family and reach out to your friends, and a strong social network can be invaluable. However, it may be really important also to have that special place where you can talk about whatever you need to talk about with a trained professional. And do the best you can to take care of yourself.
Dr. Langman spoke on the warning signs of school shootings and how mental health plays a role in the horrible events that have been occurring. It's important to discuss issues like this and find solutions so that we can move forward as a society.